Guys, today we're going to be looking at the raid bow Non-Denouement, aka legendary Trinity Ghoul. This is an arc precision bow with a fantastic perk combination, and honestly the best combination maybe ever on a legendary bow. So let's jump right into the traits. Right out the gate, guys, in its third column we have strategist, shoot to loot, hip fire grip, opening shot, impulse amplifier, dragonfly, and archer's tempo. Then over in our fourth column we have moving target, archer's gambit, desperate measures, one for all, explosive head, chaos reshaped, and volt shot. Ah yes, there it is, volt shot. Volt shot on a bow. Something I never thought Bungie would have the balls to do, but they've done it here with this raid bow. And fellas, it puts out, man. Now before we dive into that perk, I do think there are some other perk options that deserve our attention. So let's look at the third column. There are three that I would consider crafting on this bow. These being strategist, dragonfly, and archer's tempo. Let's start with strategist. This is a new perk in the final shape, and it reads that final blows with this weapon generates class ability energy. Activating your class ability briefly improves this weapon's stability. Now following suit with the demolitionist and pugilist perks, this grants us 10% class ability energy per kill. And when we use our class ability, we get some extra stability. Not necessarily something that matters on a bow though. Now since Non-Denouement is craftable, we can also get enhanced strategists. This simply just bumps up our ability regeneration to 11% versus 10%. Now this perk is very good. It doesn't exactly boost the bow's performance, but it is a good one for leaning into builds that take advantage of using your class ability as often as possible. Now our next perk in this column is Dragonfly. This reads that precision kills create an elemental damage explosion. Now I'm pretty sure most of you are probably familiar with this perk, but I'm bringing attention to it here because there's been a lot of talk about the pairing of this with Volt Shot, and we'll be talking about that synergy in just a moment. As for the AoE explosions itself though, it's 8,966 damage against Coral, and if you get enhanced Dragonfly, this gives you +5 reload speed. It's nothing crazy, but it does allow you to knock an arrow in just slightly faster. Now for our last perk, and a perk that many people love on bows, is Archer's Tempo. This says that draw time decreases after every precision hit. Now this is a 25% decrease in draw time with a 3-second refreshable duration, and the enhanced version of Archer's Tempo makes it last a bit longer, somewhere around 4 seconds. Now if we look at our bow, which has a 612 draw time, at base it takes 36 frames to reach a full draw. Then if we get a precision hit and activate Archer's Tempo, that goes down to 29 frames. Now by itself, this perk is pretty good. I think the biggest benefit though is having perks like Volt Shot, which requires a reload to proc, after of course getting a kill, something which Archer's Tempo can greatly assist with. Now taking a deeper look at our fourth column perks, there's 3 perks that I was interested in. One being Archer's Gambit. Yes, that perk is back. The other being Chaos Reshaped, and finally, Volt Shot. Now Archer's Gambit previously was exclusive only to Hush, but Bungie has since unsunset Hush, and they've actually added it right here to Non-Denouement. Essentially, whenever you get a precision hit while hip firing, you get a 4-second buff that reduces our draw time by a massive 60%. And further hip fire crits will add to this buff up to a max of 8 seconds. Interestingly, this is what enhanced Archer's Gambit should do, but it already does that at base. Now as for the actual draw time, again, if we start with the same base draw time from earlier at 36 frames at base, once Archer's Gambit is procced, you're able to get a full draw in just 17 frames. Guys, this is blazing fast, and I would say for my PvP people that are good at landing hipfire shots, this is probably going to be your go-to. Now onto our next perk. We have Chaos Reshaped. This is more of a standard damage perk, as it states that this weapon gains bonus damage while in combat for an extended time, and remaining in combat for even longer, rewards a larger damage bonus, and also periodically heals the wielder. Think of this as like a souped up frenzy. When you're in combat for 12 seconds, you get ×1, which is a 20% damage buff, and then at ×2, after being in combat for 24 seconds, this is a whopping 35% damage buff, and the healing is somewhere between 30 to 40 HP every 7 seconds. This is of course while you are at ×2 stacks. It's a great perk, guys, and for me personally, it's kind of the frenzy replacement. Now listen, when I talk about gun rolls, I love to talk about variety. Here's the problem. Volt Shot exists in that final column, and even though I love it, any promotion of variety in gun rolls, at least to my PvE players, it ain't happening. Now Volt Shot reads that reloading this weapon after defeating a target overcharges this weapon for a short period of time, causing it to jolt on its next hit. Now here's the thing, for other weapons, reloading may be annoying. Maybe you're halfway through the mag, or right at the beginning of the mag. Maybe it's got a slow reload, but a bow reloads an arrow every single time. That means as long as you are getting a kill, your next arrow will always be jolting. The only limiter here is the 7-second timer on the Volt Shot buff, but you can also self-sustain it. If your Volt Shot buffed arrow gets a kill, your next arrow will still jolt. And this is essentially a damage buff too. We deal 7,269 damage per body against Carl, and every Volt Shot application or Jolt proc will add 5,311 damage on top of that. Guys, this perk, which we all assumed would be nuts, is in fact nutty on a bow. You get boosted ad clear and boosted lethality when facing things that don't die in one hit. Now, the enhanced Volt Shot perk simply increases the timer to 8 seconds instead of 7. Now, there is one last perk in this column that I felt was worth mentioning, this being Explosive Head. Now, this doesn't do anything very flashy, and it's of course in direct competition with Volt Shot, but it's going to be the most consistent damage increase as it nets you a 15% buff on every single shot. So we have to mention it. I love this perk for a number of reasons. It's AoE, it's knockback effect, and of course the extra damage. Now, the last thing that we need to cover before we talk about perk combinations is of course the origin trait. The origin trait is collective purpose, and it reads that you gain bonus range and handling when near allies, but also bows receive faster draw time and swords receive faster charge rate. Now, the effect scales with the number of nearby allies. Now, for this bow, all we really care about is the faster draw time. Now, I took this into Excision just to test it out and to get the full effect from max stacks. The draw time does improve. I mean, it goes from 36 base to 31 frames. Not a huge difference, and not something you should go out of your way to proc. If you see teammates on the front lines in melee range of enemies, don't run in there and start shooting your bow to take advantage of that draw time. You'll probably just get killed. But for the time that you are around teammates, it is something that will contribute positively. Now, as far as our bowstrings, guys, elastic string all day long. It drops that draw time from 684 to 612. You also have compact arrow shaft, which gives you that +10 in reload, giving us that slightly faster knock speed. Now, all that out of the way, what is the god roll on Non-Denouement? For me, fellas, and look, call me basic all you want, Archer's Tempo and Volt Shot. It's too good, guys. This is the roll you've been seeing in the background footage, and man, does it lay it down. This is the combination that makes me feel like I'm using Trinity Ghoul. Yes, you're missing out on those 2 extra arrows, but in my opinion, the performance feels identical. Each bow has a self-sustaining loop of getting a kill into massive chain lightning. But personally, I think I like Non-Denouement even more. Not only is it not an exotic, but it also ties it to our subclass with Jolt, whereas Trinity Ghoul has a bespoke chain lightning that is simply weapon damage. Volt Shot literally is the actual verb Jolt. This means we can build into it, and more importantly, we can stun overload champions. There's so much to love about this combo, and it feels like we've been waiting an eternity to finally get Volt Shot on a bow. Now, I mentioned that Dragonfly and Volt Shot was also a combination that many people were bringing up. Now listen, guys, this is a combination you could definitely go with if you wish. I've talked about Incandescent and Dragonfly on Tyranny of Heaven, and that's a fantastic combo. But keep in mind, that's a different archetype. It's faster, whereas Non-Denouement is a precision frame. So if you're used to lightweight bows, this is gonna feel a bit slower, which is why we were recommending Archer's Tempo. And plus, Archer's Tempo literally just synergizes with Volt Shot directly. With that being said though, you could definitely go the route of Dragonfly and get multiple Kablumis. I personally will be sticking with Volt Shot and Archer's Tempo though, as there's not really much synergy between Dragonfly and Volt Shot like Incandescent and Dragonfly. Those 2 perks have the ability to just combo off of one another. Here though, you don't really get that, as you only get the single Dragonfly precision explosion. And even if Volt Shot does get a kill with Dragonfly on the outer edges, that's not gonna proc another Dragonfly explosion. Now, if you wanted to use Dragonfly in PvE though, my most ideal combo would actually be pairing it with One For All. This is the combination that I use on Midnight Coup, that being Firefly and One For All together. The synergy is pretty self-explanatory. Essentially, proccing the AoE damage from Dragonfly. If that hits multiple targets, that being 3 targets, One For All will in fact proc from a single shot. And that's you literally walking around with 35% more damage. Now, this is the same damage buff as Chaos Reshaped. The difference is you can of course activate One For All much quicker. Now, the last combination I want to highlight, despite me loving Volt Shot and Archer's Tempo, is Archer's Tempo and Archer's Gambit. This is a role for my PvP guys, but also for my PvE guys, if you so wish to go in there and knock back-to-back arrows extremely fast. Again, at base, our bow is at 36 frames in its draw time, but upon activating both of these perks, that gets slashed down to 15 frames, a 63% decrease in draw time. Now, I know that sounds crazy strong, but keep in mind, this is only 2 frames faster than just having Archer's Gambit. So there seems to be diminishing returns here. And we've run into this issue before. I remember back in the day when testing this out, there was always a floor where Bungie wouldn't let you go past. And that's probably what's happening here with Archer's Gambit and Archer's Tempo. Essentially, you're hitting that draw time floor. I would say if you want to get crazy, by by all means, you can go that route. At the same time, I love the idea, both in PvP and PvE, of an Archer's Gambit Dragonfly roll, especially in PvP. Get that precision kill, proc some AoE damage, and then it's easy cleanups with a super fast draw time after. Now, the last combo that I wanted to touch on, this time solely for PvP. I want to talk about opening shot in Archer's Gambit. Earlier, I said that Archer's Tempo and Archer's Gambit would be a good thing for PvP, but I actually think this combination may be better. Opening shot is going to allow us to snag those hipfire crits a lot more consistently. Here, I just wanted to test the difference and see if it was noticeable, and swapping between a bow with and without opening shot. The opening shot bow easily snags crits, but the bow without can completely miss. This is the perfect combo to start a duel with and to catch the enemy off guard, especially with that next shot firing so quickly from Archer's Gambit. Again, I'm not a fan of bows in PvP. I literally never use them. But since Archer's Gambit here can stack up to 8 seconds, and you've got a perk in that third column boosting your accuracy and your range, this may in fact be the best PvP combo. So there you go, guys. That is Non-Denouement, a bow. Definitely worth getting. If you get that craftable roll, get it with elastic string, compact arrow shaft, Archer's Tempo and bolt shot, and a draw time masterwork, and fellas, you will be cooking. This will give you the fastest draw time possible, while still keeping the massive lethality and accurate potential that bolt shot gives. And we also have the master raid coming next week, which will be giving us an adept version of this weapon. So if you're lucky, you can actually get this roll, but on the adept version, which means you can get an adept draw time mod, which is even nastier. And since spec mods have been deprecated, in a lot of ways for me, adept mods have become even better. But regardless of whether or not you get the adept version or the base version, Non-Denouement is an S tier bow. So good luck on the grind. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.